Vrata Janarandana Yashodanandana Vraja Janarandana Yamuna Tiravachari Yamuna Tiravachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Paramsakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Ghora Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Canto 3. Chapter 12, text 23. Utsangat Naradaha Jagnye Dakshaha Angushtat Swayambhuvaha Pranat Vasishtaha Sanjataha Bhruguhu Tvachi Karat Kratuhu Utsanganarado Jagnye Utsanganarado Jagnye Dakshangushta Swayambhuvahu Dakshangushtat Swayambhuvaha Dakshangushtat Swayambhuvaha Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Bhragustvachi Karat Krotuhu Bhragustvachi Karat Krotuhu Utsanga Narado Jagnye Dakshongushta Swayam Bhuvaha Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Pranad Vasishta Sanjat Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Bhragustvachi Karat Krotuhu. Please repeat. Utsanga Narado Jagnye Dakshongushtat Swayam Bhuvaha
Utsanganardo Yagne Dakshongushtat Swayam Bhuvaha Pranad Vasishta Sanjato
Pranad Vasishta Sanjato
Bhragustvachi Karat Krituhu
Bhragustvachi Karat Krutuhu Utsanga Narado Jagnye Dakshongushtat Swayam Bhuvaha Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Bhragustvachi Karat Krituhu. Matajis. Utsanga Narado Jagnye Dakshongushtat Swayam Bhuvaha Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Bhragustvachi Karat Krituhu Utsanga Narado Jagnye Dakshongushtat Swayam Bhuvaha Pranad Vasishta Sanjato Bhragustvachi Karat Krituhu Utsangat by transcendental deliberation. Naradaha Mahamuni Narada Jagnye was generated. Dakshaha Daksha Angushtat from the thumb. Swayambhuvaha of Brahma. Pranat from the life air or breathing. Vasishtaha Vasishta. Sanjataha was born. Bhriguhu the sage Bhrigu. Tvachi from the touch. Karat from the hand. Kratuhu the sage Kratu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Narada was born from the deliberation of Brahma, which is the best part of his body. Vasishta was born from his breathing, Daksha from a thumb, Bhrigu from his touch, and Kratu from his hand. Purport. Narada was born from the best deliberation of Brahma because Narada was able to deliver the Supreme Lord to anyone he liked. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be realized by any amount of Vedic knowledge or any number of penances, but a pure devotee of the Lord, like Narada, can deliver the Supreme Lord by his goodwill. The very name Narada suggests that he can deliver the Supreme Lord. Nara means the Supreme Lord, and Da means one who can deliver. That he can deliver the Supreme Lord does not mean that the Lord is like a commodity that can be delivered to any person. But Narada can deliver to anyone the transcendental loving service of the Lord as a servitor, friend, parent, lover, as one may desire out of one's own out of one's own transcendental love for the Lord. In other words, it is Narada only who can deliver the path of Bhakti Yoga, the highest mystic means for attainment of the Supreme Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakaram Mahyam Darati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatah Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagaradatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Saharvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vashankan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dhinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Virshabhami Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripasunubhi Vicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavi Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Parishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vikasa Swamaniti Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Parishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyarishtharini Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Narada was born from the deliberation of Brahma, which is the best part of his body. Vasishta was born from his breathing, Daksha from a thumb, Bhrigu from his touch, and Kratu from his hand. So we see Narada Muni coming from Lord Brahma along with the 9 other rishis who are described in the verse previously covered by Chandanacharya Prabhu. We have Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Bhrigu, Vasishta, Daksha, and the 10th son Narada, who have just been born. So as we see described, they're each coming from different body parts of Lord Brahma. But specifically Narada, as the 10th son, he is quite different from the others as we see. Utsangat, as the translation says, by transcendental deliberation. So transcendental, of course, meaning without any sort of contamination. Deliberation it can be in relation to somebody deliberating on a topic, like elaborating on it in great detail, or it can be very long and careful thought. So it was this uncontaminated thought, especially that of which was free from passion, which Lord Brahma is in contact with as the creator of the universe, which brought about the birth of of Narada Muni. So if we go to I'll just read this, you don't have to pull it up. Bhagavatam, Canto 3, 26, text 14, is apart from this purport that reads, when pure consciousness is polluted by material contamination, and when identification with the body becomes prominent, one is said to be situated under false ego. Consciousness is the function of the soul, and therefore behind consciousness there is soul. Consciousness polluted by material contamination is called ahankar. This is one of the very things that Lord Brahma prayed to Krishna for, protection from false ego, becoming puffed up in his position. So it would, he prays to not become subject to his own creation, so he's not deterred in any way in carrying out the Lord's mission. And those prayers are as follows. You can pull this up. Canto 3, chapter 9, text 23. So again, he's praying against material contamination. Esha prapana varadora mayatma shaktya yad yat karishyati grihita gunavataraha tasmin savikrama medam srijato picheto yunjita karma shamalam jayatha vijahyam. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, is always the benefactor of the surrendered souls. His activities are always enacted through his internal potency, Rama, or the goddess of fortune. I pray only to engage in his service in the creation of the material world, and I pray that I not be materially affected by my works, for thus I may be able to give up the false prestige of being the creator. The final sentence of this purport, it reads, is to harp on that same point, that by spiritual consciousness only can one be freed from the contamination of material affection. and receive the benedictions offered by the Lord. So we see that Lord Brahma was perfectly situated, especially when Narada Muni comes from his deliberation. It's described in the purport that Narada was born from the best deliberation of Brahma, because Narada was able to deliver the Supreme Lord to anyone that he liked. And we see that the activities of Narada Muni are significantly different from the activities of the other 9 rishis that come into play here. And one of the things that is especially notable is that Narada Muni is as he's known as the transcendental spaceman. He's always wandering. He's always chanting the glories of the holy name. And in this, he's very expert in increasing the Lord's pleasure, because, as it's stated, he's always delivering the Supreme Lord to anyone whom he likes. So the thing is, of course, we understand that the pure devotee has no friends or enemies out of his goodwill and his causeless mercy, only that he gives the holy name. We sing every morning, Samsara Davana Lalita Loka, Tranaya Karunya Ganaganatvam, Praptasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya, Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. This, the Supreme Lord, out of his causeless mercy, he's receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, and he's taken on the auspicious quality of a rain cloud in distributing this upon the fallen conditioned souls afflicted by the burning material existence. So we see that specifically between in the dealing between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva, where Narada Muni is first comes into play very early on in the first canto. So in this dealing specifically, we see that Vyasadeva has compiled all these Vedic literatures. He's given guidance for so many different aspects of society, and yet for some reason he's still feeling dissatisfied, and so therefore he's trying to figure out what is the root cause of his discontent. This point was brought up by Carudesna Prabhu previously in this class, and Narada Muni, of course, explains that the lack that is a discontent that he's feeling is a result of not actually giving people devotional service, and so they speak some more, and so we come to hear Vyasadeva inquire how is it that Narada Muni attained perfection. So you can pull up in this connection Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 23. Me personally, at least, when I was going through this part of Bhagavatam for the first time, which I've only gone through it once, I'm still in the 3rd canto, but I found it quite inspiring, because you see Narada Muni, especially if you look at his birth and his activities, and it's everything that of which, of course, that we're engaged in, but you see that he achieves perfection, and he's able to go from being ultimately, of course, a conditioned soul to being such an exalted personality. So it reads, and you can just go to the translation. O Muni, in the last millennium, I was born as the son of a certain maidservant engaged in the service of Brahmanas who were following the principles of Vedanta. When they were living together during the 4 months of the rainy season, I was engaged in the personal service. You can keep on going. Excuse me. Although they were impartial by nature, those followers of the Vedanta blessed me with their causeless mercy. As far as I was concerned, I was self-controlled and had no attachment for sports, even though I was a boy. In addition, I was not naughty, and I did not speak more than required. Once only by their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and by doing so, all my sins were at once eradicated. Thus being engaged, I became purified in heart, and at that time, the very nature of the transcendentalist became attractive to me. So we see that the strength of the one takes the remnants of a pure devotee. The amount of mercy that the one is positioned to receive of course, if you look at it externally, at least like when I first came into Krishna consciousness, the whole idea of eating off of somebody else's plate is like, it doesn't sound like a good idea. I'm like, I don't think I ever would have done it. And most people, of course, without having like a proper conception, it just sounds like a rather low class thing to do. Actually, it's like, take the remnants of somebody else. It's like you see the homeless in Atlanta do that. Actually, they're probably too picky to do that, but maybe if they can't find something else, they will. But we see, I went through. There was this point that His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj brought up in one of his lectures, Inspirational Narada, where essentially we see that Narada Muni, he's so fortunate. He takes this. It takes a great level of humility to accept the remnants of another person, and we see, of course, that he wasn't of high birth. Particularly, it's described as we see that he's the son of a maidservant. Generally, I mean, we've seen. For example, when Krishna is addressing Arjuna, "O scion of Bharat," it's always the son. Generally, one is addressed in relationship to the father, but the fact that he's addressed in relationship to his mother indicates likely that the father is not known. This point was also made by Maharaj that it would often be the case that the maidservant, if she had a child, it was an illegitimate child, and that in and of itself can indicate to somebody, oh, this person is probably not of such a high position. So we see that even still, that Narada Muni was able to rise to such a high platform despite where he was coming in the material world. It's described in the purport for, this is text 25, right? Yeah, you can go down. Yeah, so pure devotion is as much infectious in a good sense as infectious diseases. A pure devotee is cleared of all kinds of sins. The personality of Godhead is the purest entity, and unless one is equally pure from the infection of material qualities, one cannot become a pure devotee of the Lord. The Bhaktivedantas, as above mentioned, were pure devotees, and the boy became infected with their qualities of purity by their association and by eating once the remnants of the foodstuff taken by them. Such remnants may be taken even without permission of the pure devotees. There are sometimes pseudo devotees, and one should be very much cautious about them. Let me see. You can. Actually, no. Okay, we're good. There are many things which hinder one from entering devotional service, but by the association of pure devotees, all these obstacles are removed. The neophyte devotee becomes practically enriched with the transcendental qualities of the pure devotee, which means attraction for the personality of Godhead's name, fame, quality, pastimes, etc., etc. Infection of the qualities of the pure devotee means to imbibe the taste of pure devotion always in the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead. And then this transcendental taste at once makes all material things distasteful. Of course, you read that. I still have much of a taste for material life, unfortunately. So sometimes we read these things in Bhagavatam, and I wonder, it's like, when will I, attain to that position? But the thing is that we understand that material, it's attachment that's holding us back, of course. Now, going on, in the next chapter, at the beginning of the next chapter, you can go to the beginning of chapter 6. Sri Vyasadeva, he inquires into what are the activities that of which Narada Muni engages in once the sages depart. So, because we understand that they spent some time during the 4 months of the rainy season, under which Narada Muni was engaged in serving them, and then finally they leave and they go on their way, and that's pretty much it. So, you can go to text 2. Sri Vyasadeva said, "What did Narada do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you? What did you do after the departure of the great sages who had instructed you in scientific transcendental knowledge before the beginning of your present birth? O son of Brahma, how did you pass your life after initiation, and how did you attain this body, having quit your old one in due course? O great sage, time annihilates everything in due course, so how is it that this subject matter, which happened prior to this day of Brahma, is still fresh in your memory, undisturbed by time? You can jump ahead. Well, I guess you can just continue going. So it's a long stretch of verses I wanted to share. Sri Narada said, in reply, the great sages who had imparted scientific knowledge of transcendence to me departed for other places, and I had to pass my life in this way. I was the only son of my mother, who was not only a simple woman, but a maidservant as well. Since I was her only offspring, she had no other alternative for protection. She bound me with the tie of affection. So we see, again, there's this material affection that's there between the mother and the son, which of course is very natural. But very quickly, due to this association that Narada Muni got at such a young age, we'll see that she, well, I'll just read from here. She wanted to look after my maintenance properly, but because she was not independent, she was not able to do anything for me. The world is under the full control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, everyone is like a wooden doll in the hands of a puppet master. When I was a mere child of 5 years, I lived in a Brahmana school. I was dependent on my mother's affection and had no experience of different lands. Once upon a time, my poor mother, when going out one night to milk a cow, was bitten on the leg by a serpent, influenced by supreme time. So I took this as a special mercy of the Lord, who always desires benediction for his devotees, and so thinking, I started for the north. So it's pretty amazing. I mean, he's pretty young, and just like his mother dies, and he's immediately saying, yep, this is the Lord's mercy. And it's described as supreme time, which is, we understand the Kala as we were going through previous verses, that this eternal time is the unmanifest, it's the will of the Supreme Lord. And it's under this that all things are moving in the material world. And we find Narada takes a position where he's fully dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And even though this position, of course, materially speaking, it looks quite terrible. He doesn't have a father. He's young. His mother has just died. It's not like he's growing up in a wealthy family. It doesn't sound like there's other family members there to care for him. But still, he immediately starts to head north. So we see that sometimes in our own, at least in my experience, and I'm sure, I guess every devotee most likely can relate to this, it's in retrospect, when we look back at certain situations that we might have gone through that were either difficult or even worked out really nicely in our favor, we realize that the Supreme Lord was actually dictating all this, and we can realize, okay, Krishna clearly orchestrated this. It's not generally that we're like going through a situation, of course, unless you're just like super Krishna conscious. I'm not. And if I'm struggling, I'm not always going to recognize that, yeah, Krishna just wants me to get purified of this particular anartha. So it takes some vision to realize that, yep, this is certainly the will of the Supreme Lord, and just immediately start heading out, especially at such a young age. So I'll continue reading from there. I just want to make that point. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. Excuse me. I passed through hills and mountains full of reservoirs of various minerals like gold, silver, and copper, and through tracts of land with reservoirs of water filled with beautiful lotus flowers, fit for the denizens of heaven, decorated with bewildered bees and singing birds. I then passed alone through many forests of rushes, bamboo reeds, sharp grass, weeds, and caves, which were very difficult to go through alone. I visited deep, dark, and dangerously fearful forests, which were the play yards of snakes, owls, and jackals. Thus traveling, I felt, you can skip this verse. You can go on to the next one.
You read this one?
No, you can go on to the next one, sorry.
I don't think you read this one.
No, I didn't, but anyways, it's fine. Okay, no, it's fine, go back, might as well. Okay. After that, under the shadow of a banyan tree in an uninhabited forest. Huh?
You want to go back?
No, don't worry, it's fine. It was just saying that he like drank water. That's why I was like, it's not like, he got tired and he started drinking water. I was gonna say, just skip it. Under the shadow of a banyan tree in an uninhabited forest, in an uninhabited forest, I began to meditate upon the supersoul situated within, using my intelligence as I had learned from the liberated soul. So we see that he is, even though without the direct guidance of the well, I guess of course when we're acting under the instruction of the guru, we're still directly acting in devotional service and going under their instruction. But the Vani is quite powerful as well, and one can still associate and follow the guru in that manner. And we see that Narada Muni is showing this. The nice thing about this whole pastime, or about the whole, you could say, path life of Narada Muni, as he describes it, is so much of what he went through, especially on his way to becoming Narada Muni, is much of the same difficulty that we face in devotional service, which is a large reason. Like, this was probably one of the more influential parts of Shastra, at least that I read, like coming to Krishna consciousness. I know, like, at least specifically, there were two instances or two texts, I'll say, of Prabhupada's books that like really had an impact on me. The first was, of course, chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna gives his first instructions about how you're not the body. I read that, and I remember I was like, okay, I'm ready to like move in. And I told my family that they're not my family, which was a terrible mistake. That's like an amazing thing you want to tell people before you move away from them. So there was that. And then when I finally did start Bhagavatam, of course, you take some time to get there because you read through the small books and then you go through Gita. It's not like, you see the Bhagavatam and you see everybody else, especially around, is reading. It's like, you're like, man, when am I going to get to the Bhagavatam? A big thing that was frustrating me, at least coming in, is I didn't have, obviously, like, so many other bhaktas that were, like, with me. So I'm just seeing everybody that's, like, senior to me. And I'm seeing where they're reading. I'm seeing how advanced they are, how learned they are. And it was like, it's hard. I mean, I guess being in an ashram, and you feel like you have all these texts that you want to read and that you have to read. What to speak of, like, your mental is anything. And you're around people and they're just like blissed out. There's like no problems, and you don't really see like what they went through in order to get to like that position of being fixed in devotional service. So when I finally did read at least this part of Bhagavatam, it gave me a great deal of inspiration and a hope, because you realize, of course, that you just stick to the process. And ultimately, you'll see the results, assuming that you try to apply yourself sincerely. And excuse me. And of course, when we look at devotees around us, if one is looking in proper light, we can also get a great deal of inspiration from those around us as well. I mean, everybody started. Some of us didn't start, I guess, just in this life. Some of us are continuing. I doubt I am, based on my past activities, but one can find inspiration if they're looking at things properly. At least I can say for myself that I wasn't. So again, this is probably one of my favorite parts of Bhagavatam. I wanted to read on. This is text, which is it? 15. Yeah, I'll keep on going. All right, because I really like this part. All right, so after this, you can go to 16. As soon as I began to meditate upon the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, with my mind transformed in transcendental love, tears rolled down my eyes. Without delay, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, appeared on the lotus of my heart. O Vyasadeva, at that time, being exceedingly overpowered by feelings of happiness, every part of my body became separately enlivened. Being absorbed in an ocean of ecstasy, I could not see both myself and the Lord. The transcendental form of the Lord, as it is, satisfies the mind's desire and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing that form, I suddenly got up, being perturbed, as is usual, when one loses that which is desirable. I desired to see again the transcendental form of the Lord, but despite my attempts to concentrate upon the heart with eagerness to view the form again, I could not see him anymore, and thus dissatisfied, I was very much aggrieved. So we see that just by Krishna's mercy, he gives him just a glimpse, and then he quickly disappears from him. And it's like that, at least when you come into devotional service. Sometimes we get this like flood of mercy, and you can maybe you feel blissful, or you just get like this amazing reciprocation, whether it's in like japa or some other aspect of devotional service. And then time goes on and you're just kind of like, okay, why don't I still feel like that? What happened? Like, I thought it was going to be like this all the time. I mean, and it's I remember like I had a specific conversation with Chandanacharya Prabhu. I think this was like 2 or 3 weeks in. I was like, well, I'm like, I don't feel the bliss. Like, why don't I feel the bliss? And you're like, yeah, we had a lot of conversations about that. And you were saying, like, anyways, you practice for so long. It's not like I don't feel like this like every single day, or like I don't feel like this bliss. It's like, what exactly is it that you're looking for? Is one of the questions you posed to me. And then I also realized, I'm like, I actually didn't know. I'm like, I just thought everybody else was blissed out. I was missing out on something that everybody else had. So I was mental, just because I'm like, I know, I'm like, okay, so this is a blissful process. I'm supposed to feel the bliss. I don't know what it is, but it seems like they have it, so I'm upset that I don't. That was my whole thought process. And it's like, when he broke it down, I was like, damn, okay, I feel pretty stupid, excuse my language. Either way, we might get some sort of like some impetus to really start taking devotional service seriously, and then we realize that, or we find that it's not such an easy process. You're just cleaning the toilet some days, or you're doing night clean, and you're picking like bits of food out of the sink, and it's like 9 o'clock, and you're wondering like, why am I doing this for free? Or you're like scrubbing the floor. You're and I was also still in university, so again, I was like really like mental. I was like, I don't know what I got myself into. Did I move in too fast? I know a slew of things can like go through your head. And at least I can recount like so many different things like went in my head. I'm really wondering like, gosh, should I make the right decision? And of course, when we start to actually understand the perfection of life actually is cleaning Krishna's temple. That is, it's not that you're going to be like necessarily smiling ear to ear while you're scrubbing like stool out of a toilet, but unless you got like some realization, I don't. But there's an appreciation that is to be had for that position, So, if you want, could you go to text 21 and go to the purport? Actually, I wanted to read this too. O Narada, the Lord spoke. I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. So you can scroll down to, it begins with one who, wait, nope, that's right there. Just right there. Perfect. One can go out into the forest to attain spiritual perfection, but that does not mean that one can see the Lord personally there. One must be completely free from all material attachment and be situated on the plane of transcendence, which alone will help the devotee get in personal touch with the personality of Godhead. Excuse me. The best method is that one should live at a place where the transcendental form of the Lord is worshipped. The temple of the Lord is a transcendental place, whereas the forest is a materially good habitation. So, I know at least for me, I didn't have an appreciation, of course, and I mean, how even now we can maybe philosophically understand like, okay, like this really is like the highest thing, But even so, I don't feel like I really fully appreciated what's been given to me. But the opportunity of moving into the temple to associate with devotees, to engage in devotional service, especially after millions and millions of births of trying to satisfy our desires out in the material world and falling short of it every single time because we can never actually find that real satisfaction. Again, this is something I like to meditate upon. Just last night I was doing night clean. I told Ollie, I'm like, man, how did I get here? It's like I'm glad I came, you know. There's it's further down in this purport I wanted to read, starting with in his present life. I think you might have gone a little too far. Let me see. Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. In his present life, which is completely freed from all material hankerings, Sri Narada Muni does not go into the forest, although he can turn every place into Vaikuntha by his presence only. He travels from one planet to another to convert men, gods, kinnaras, Gandharvas, rishis, munis, and all others to become devotees of the Lord. By his activities, he has engaged many devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, and many others in the transcendental service of the Lord. A pure devotee, therefore, follows in the footsteps of the great devotees like Narada and Prahlad, and engages his whole time in glorifying the Lord by the process of kirtan. Such a preaching process is transcendental to all material qualities. So, it's an amazing purport. Again, how I put it. Yeah, again, it's not always directly perceivable, that mercy, you know. But the reason as to why Krishna gives us, for example, maybe that flood of mercy in the beginning, and then seemingly takes it away after you remain engaged for some time, is because he wants to see how sincere we are and give us the opportunity to continue to endeavor, to see if we're going to keep on pushing that for that mercy. Because, of course, this is described, for example, in Gita, that there's 4 different types of people who come to him in devotional service. And generally, one thing a lot of people can share in coming to devotional service is some sort of anxiety, some sort of discontent with the material world. And we're wanting relief from that. So when we maybe feel some sort of relief, but then we realize, or we're told of a higher goal, and then, you know, that we should strive beyond just pleasing our own senses or finding some sort of remedy to our material situation, but actually striving to never have to have another material situation again. Again, that's when, again, devotional service, it starts. You continue to engage in the process to try to qualify yourself to not just see the Lord, but of course to be seen by the Lord. So Narada Muni, again, I want to just read this a little bit more. This is text 21. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna keep on going. O virtuous one, you have only once seen my person, and this is just to increase your desire for me, because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from all material desires. That's a great measure, of course, to be able to tell. There's so many different measures that we're given to see, like, how we're progressing in devotional service, but to see how much are we still holding on to our material attachments, how much are we actually attached to the service of the Lord, is another great indicator, of course, for where we're at. So by service of the absolute truth, even for a few days the devotee attains firm and fixed intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. You can skip over to text 26. Thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated, of course, this is like after the Lord disappears, pretty much. He says this to Narada, and he disappears from his not from his vision, but he spoke to him So I guess he disappears from his vision, and then he stops speaking afterwards, and everything's just kind of silent from that point. So picking up from there, Narada says that thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental qualities of the Lord are benedictory. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. You can keep going. And so, O Brahmana Vyasadeva, in due course of time, I was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death as lightning and illumination occurs simultaneously. You can continue from there. Having been awarded a transcendental body befitting an associate of the personality of Godhead, I quit the body made of material elements and thus acquired fruitive results of work, and thus all acquired fruitive results of work stopped. At the end of the millennium, when the personality of Godhead, I'm almost done reading. I know this is sometimes hard to stay with. When the personality of Godhead and Lord Narayan laid down within the water of devastation, Brahma began to enter into him along with all created elements, and I also entered through his breathing. After 4.3 billion solar years, when Brahma awoke to create again by the will of the Lord, all the rishis like Marichi, Angira, Atri, and so on were created from the transcendental body of the Lord, and I also appeared among them. Since then, by the grace of the Almighty Vishnu, I travel everywhere without restriction, both in the transcendental world and in the three divisions of the material world. This is because I am fixed in unbroken devotional service of the Lord. I read this, I was really fired up. I'm like, gosh, how cool is that? The crazy thing is you read this, and as we go on, there's so many different instances and interactions. I'm running a little low on time. There's so many different instances with with Narada Muni that come up, where, for example, he instructs, as it said in one of the purports, he instructs Prahlad Maharaj, he instructs Dhruva Maharaj, he curses the Kuvera twins, of course, for their benefit, but he's such an exalted personality, and yet if you look at Bollywood, or I guess Indian pop culture, depiction of Narada Muni, he's just a complete joke. It's this big goofball. I don't know if anybody's, maybe not here, maybe Charanas or somebody's seen it, Narayan. Have you heard of that? What is it Big Time or whatever the network is that it comes on? I don't either. But anyway, so that was one of the shows, and it was it essentially makes a terrible depiction of Narada Muni. So some people might have this idea of him just being some comical figure, but he's actually a great source of inspiration. Again, you see that what qualification did he have being the son of a maidservant? Somehow he achieves the association of pure devotees. He takes their remnants. He goes on to get the mercy of the Lord. He gets direct darshan, gets direct instruction, leaves his body, and then is able to attain the spiritual body. So it demonstrates the strength of devotional service, and the strength, of course, you could say the importance as well of taking the humble position. There's so many different ideas, I guess, and conceptions one might have in order to mediate or take away one's suffering in the material world, whether it's of course, I guess merging into the unknown, you have impersonal, merging into this, this void. Then you have people who just completely and totally want to maybe try to go and enjoy separate from God. But we see here that what Narada Muni demonstrates is, this is at least for me, really drove home the point that devotional service isn't a means to get free from suffering, but something that is engaged in ongoing, or eternally. And it's not just something that we do so that we can go and try to enjoy separately from God. So we got about 5 minutes left. We're ending at 7:30, right? So I'll go ahead and stop there, open up for questions, comments, concerns, chastisements, corrections.
Just wanted to mention, you said that Vani is almost or equally important as Vapu. It's that Vani is even more important.
Oh, forgive me.
Prabhupada says in one place, you can read in the Muda mission, that Vapu is for fools.
Vapu's for fools.
Yeah, that just to take that the Vapu of the spiritual master, but not to take the Vani, or to consider Vani as not as higher. The Vani, obviously, Guru Maharaj gives a very proper understanding of that whole, that not that one neglects the Vapu or considers it to be less important, but he sees that through the Vapu, the Vani is coming, which is the essence. And so one has to take that, and so he carries that in his heart. So that is the most important thing in a disciple's life, that Vani.
Thank you for clarifying that. Jai Kalki Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just a quick comment, but I was thinking also with this pastime of Narada Muni, it's also a good instruction, especially in regards to one's birth, because his birth was not very, he didn't really have a good opportunity, so to say, in the beginning. I mean, his mother was, questionable. His father was unknown, but he got a good opportunity. And then from that, he was able to get to an amazing position. So it's good inspiration for us, especially growing up in the West.
Yeah, definitely.
That we have some questionable backgrounds, but we have the opportunity. We've gotten the opportunity now. I mean, Narada Muni just had 4 months, but we have so much longer time.
Yeah.
So it's it should be really inspirational to us to really take the process seriously, and utilize this human form of life. So
yeah, definitely. Anybody else?
I was just thinking in that regard of when I'm sure Prabhupada mentioned Narada Muni came and he laughed at all the Malachaja chanting Hare Krishna. It's just interesting because he and Narada, from the past times he's born. And so how merciful he is to even turn up there and see, this is happening. I don't know, that just came to my mind. I thought that was pretty ecstatic, that you mentioning that, and how Narada is watching us, and he's in the Sankirtan movement, and he's able to, he's there with Prabhupada, even in London, that keep a seat for Narada and Brahma. So it's just, they're so intimately related in our line. And they're present, in Srila Prabhupada's movements, and seeing where to be present, where to come when there's Sankirtan going on. So this pastime that's going on, it's quite amazing how closely it's related with what's going on now in our lives of being in Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody else? Mataji's? Okay. I thought Hoda's hand went up.
I was reading. It's interesting because, in the verse we read today is talking about how Narada manifested in the beginning of the creation, but then it's the pastime of him being conditioned, and it's kind of confusing because on one end it kind of seems like he's a Nityasiddha, but it also kind of seems like he's conditioned, and is one purport Prabhupada says that formerly Narada Muni was the son of a maid servant, and therefore in his next birth he attained perfection sadhana siddha because of having executed devotional service. Yet he's also a nitya siddha because he never forgets the Supreme Lord. So, and Prabhupada says that there are some devotees who are mixed sadhana siddha and nitya siddha. Yeah, and it says that Prahlad Maharaj is also similar, that he's perfect partly because of executing devotional service and partly because of eternal perfection. So it's interesting, he's displaying the pastime of both. He's a sadhana siddha and he's also a nitya siddha simultaneously.
Yeah,
really, yes.
I was just really quick. I'll just make this last comment because I know it's 7:30. I was with Kalki Prabhu. I was trying to find out. I guess I'd read in like this illustrated Bhagavatam stories about Narada Muni before, because this was all like as it describes in a different creation. It's described how he was actually a Gandharva. His name was Upaparna, and he basically was in a kirtan in association with women, and he glorifies the demigods and gets chastised for it because he improperly thought the glorification of the demigods was on par with glorification of the Supreme Lord. And for that, they cursed him, and he fell down, and basically from that position, then he took birth as the son of a maidservant. And this is, I guess, I think it was in like some Mahakalpa it was described. I'm not exactly sure about the exact time frame, but anyways, yeah, it's pretty amazing, and he has memory of all this, and he shares that, so it's pretty crazy to see. It's interesting, Nitya Siddha and Sadhana, or is it Nitya Siddha and Sadha?
He's mixed.
Mixed.
Both sadhana siddha and nitya siddha.
Yeah, that's far out. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Mahamuni Narada ki.